Have you ever thought about how a single event could alter the course of history significantly? In the summer of 1914, such an event occurred in Sarajevo. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, sent shockwaves through Europe and beyond, marking the beginning of a turbulent era. Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist, stood at the heart of this drama. Torn between his duty to his people and the potential consequences of his actions, he found himself at a crossroads. As the Archduke's motorcade weaved through the city streets, Princip was caught in a moment of hesitation. He was fueled by a desire for freedom, yet the gravity of what was about to unfold was not lost on him. The motorcade approached, and Princip seized the moment. 2 shots rang out, shattering the tranquility of the evening. The Archduke was fatally wounded, and the city of Sarajevo was thrown into a state of panic and confusion. The echoes of the gunshots reverberated not just through the city, but across the entire continent. The assassination triggered a diplomatic crisis. Austria-Hungary, stung by the attack on their air, pointed fingers at Serbia, accusing them of harboring terrorists. The intricate web of alliances that had been woven throughout Europe began to pull nations into the conflict. What started as a regional incident was rapidly escalating into a global catastrophe. The dominoes began to fall. Declarations of war spread across Europe like wildfire. Nations chose sides, and the world found itself on the brink of an unprecedented conflict. The stage was set for the Great War. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was an event that forever changed the course of history. It serves as a stark reminder of how a single act can set off a chain reaction with far-reaching consequences. As we delve deeper into the events that followed, we'll explore how this act of violence plunged the world into the depths of war. The echoes of the gunshot that killed Franz Ferdinand set in motion a chain of events that would shape the world. In the aftermath of the assassination, a complex web of alliances and rivalities came into play. The gunshot that ended the life of Archduke Franz Ferdinand reverberated far beyond the streets of Sarajevo, echoing throughout the halls of power across Europe. Austria-Hungary, stung by the brazen assault on their future king, pointed an accusatory finger at Serbia, alleging them to be the puppeteers behind this act of terror. This accusation was more than just an indictment of Serbia. It was a call to arms, a challenge thrown at the feet of the intricate network of alliances that crisscrossed the continent. The alliances, built over years of power struggles and political maneuvering, were not just mere agreements. They were promises, pledges of mutual protection that bound nations together, for better or worse. Soon, diplomatic cables were humming with activity. Declarations of support were exchanged, ultimatums were issued, and the drums of war began to beat. The assassination had set off a chain reaction, a cascade of events that was as unstoppable as it was devastating. Austria-Hungary, bolstered by the promise of support from their powerful ally Germany, declared war on Serbia. Russia, bound by a treaty to protect the Slavic nations, mobilized in response. Germany in turn declared war on Russia. The dominoes were falling. France, tied to Russia by another alliance, was pulled into the conflict. Germany declared war on France, and then Britain, honor-bound by a century-old treaty to protect Belgium, declared war on Germany as the latter marched through Belgium to invade France. The dominoes didn't just fall, they crashed and shattered, pulling nations into the vortex of conflict, transforming a regional dispute into a global cataclysm. The world, as people knew it, was changing, morphing into a theater of war that would consume millions of lives and reshape the geopolitical landscape. Just like dominoes, one event toppled the next, plunging the world into war. On the battleground, soldiers faced the harsh realities of war. The trenches, dug deep into the earth, were a stark contrast to the romanticized images of gallantry and heroism that many had envisioned. Amidst the mud, the cold, and the perpetual fear, life took on a grim rhythm of its own. The soldiers were not just fighting the enemy, they were fighting against the elements. Rain turned the trenches into muddy quagmires, making movement difficult and sleep nearly impossible. In winter, the cold was biting and relentless. Disease was rampant, and the lack of proper medical facilities meant that even minor injuries could become fatal. Yet it was not just the physical conditions that tested the mettle of these men. The psychological toll was equally devastating. The deafening roar of artillery, the acrid smell of gas, and the ever-present spectre of death created a haunting tableau of fear and uncertainty. What's more, the constant threat of a surprise attack led to a state of continuous alertness, further straining the nerves. The introduction of new technologies of destruction added another layer of horror to the battlefield. Tanks, initially seen as a technological marvel, soon became a symbol of the relentless and impersonal nature of modern warfare. Chemical weapons, introduced on a large scale during this conflict, unleashed a new kind of terror. The sight of gas masks became a chilling reminder of the inhumanity of war. Amidst all this, the soldiers found ways to endure. They wrote letters home, shared stories, and even managed to find humor in the direst of situations. These were the moments of humanity that shone through the darkness, reminding them of what they were fighting for. However, the trenches did not just alter the lives of the soldiers, they transformed the very nature of warfare. The war of movement turned into a war of attrition. The landscape of the battlefield became a stagnant tableau of brutality, where progress was measured in yards rather than miles. The trenches became a symbol of the stagnant brutality of war. They stood as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the tragic irony of a war fought in the name of progress, yet marked by such devastating destruction. While the soldiers fought, political leaders grappled with the complexities of the conflict. Negotiating the paths to peace during the height of war was like navigating through a labyrinth in pitch darkness. The intricate web of alliances, the deep-seated resentments and the burning desire for victory made the pursuit of peace a daunting task. The League of Nations, a fledgling intergovernmental organization, was conceived with the hope of facilitating peaceful resolutions to international disputes. It was a beacon of hope in the stormy sea of war, a testament to the collective yearning for peace. However, it was an untested entity, its influence yet to be established, its authority yet to be recognized. Attempting to mediate in the midst of a war is a Herculean task. The League of Nations faced constant pushback and resistance. Each attempt at negotiation was met with skepticism and defiance. The nations embroiled in the war had their own agendas, their own interests to protect. The League was often caught in a tug-of-war, struggling to maintain a balance between the warring parties. Despite the challenges, the League persevered. It was a constant reminder to the world that peace was a possibility, that diplomacy could prevail over violence. Yet the war machine was relentless. Each day the trenches claimed more lives, and the cries for peace were drowned out by the deafening roar of artillery. In the grand halls of power, leaders debated and deliberated, trying to find a path towards peace. Yet on the battlefield, the soldiers knew nothing of these efforts. They were trapped in the brutal reality of war, their lives hanging by a thread. The League of Nations, despite its noble intentions, found itself embroiled in a conflict far beyond its control. The war had taken on a life of its own, and the quest for peace seemed more elusive than ever. Despite their efforts, the war machine rolled on, consuming the hopes of those who yearned for peace. In 1918, the guns fell silent, but the world was forever changed. The end of the Great War marked a new era, an era of hope, yet marred by the scars of the past. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in June of 1919, sought to bring closure to a conflict that had consumed the globe. Yet it was a flawed peace, a peace that left many nations feeling disillusioned and wronged. The treaty placed the blame for the war squarely on the shoulders of Germany and Austria-Hungary. They were burdened with heavy reparations, and their territories were drastically reduced, fostering a sense of resentment that would simmer for years to come. The redrawing of the map of Europe was not without its complications. New nations emerged from the ashes of empires, and old rivalries resurfaced, setting the stage for future conflicts. The end of the war also saw the birth of the League of Nations, an ambitious project designed to foster international cooperation and prevent future wars. Yet, the League faced significant challenges from the outset. It struggled to establish its authority, and several key nations, including the United States, opted not to join. Despite its noble intentions, the League was unable to prevent the rise of militarism and the outbreak of another devastating conflict 2 decades later. The aftermath of the war was a time of reflection. The world had witnessed the destructive power of modern warfare, and the devastating human cost. It was a time to mourn the millions who had perished, and to care for those who returned home, bearing the physical and emotional scars of battle. The world had changed in ways both profound and troubling. The seeds of discontent had been sown, and the echoes of the Great War would reverberate throughout the 20th century. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand had set in motion a cataclysmic chain of events, forever altering the course of history.